Welcome to the third session of our Putting Nature-Based Health and Therapy into Practice International Online Symposium. Really happy to have you here. Grateful for all our speakers that we're having. We've been having a really lovely day already with really inspiring presentations and great conversations after. As I said, this is our third session. We have four fantastic speakers here that I'm really looking forward to hearing from. This includes Amy Wagenfeld, who is an OT from the US and works in nature-based health practice, if you will. Lotta Lundmark from Sweden will also talk about landscapes and health and the likes. And then we have Laura Hergott from PaRx Canada, representing a fairly large program and movement over there that will tell us exciting things about their program for sure. And Marcalee Alexander, who is president of SustainOurAbilities, an organization kind of working across climate disability and health. And she's also the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Climate Change and Health. And because Marcalee will have to leave us and won't be in the discussion section, we'll just jig the session here around a little bit, and that Marcalee will give her presentation first, and we'll just briefly open up for a few direct questions before moving on to the next speaker and then the next and so forth, and then have our final discussion at the end again. Apologies for the lighting in the room I'm in. It makes me look like I have like really, I don't know, dark eyes. I'm some kind of vampire sitting in a cave or something. But I'm otherwise in good spirits. And yeah, as I said, I'm looking forward to the presentations and so on. All right, Marcalee, I'll just give the word to you. You can share your slides if you have.
Thank you, Philip, and thanks everyone for being here and listening to my presentation. And I am going to first hide my panel and I hope you enjoy learning a little bit different. All right, let's get this going here. All right. What I'm going to be doing today is kind of trying to bridge two worlds. I am the editor of the Journal of Climate Change and Health. I am a rehab physician. And what I want to do today, it seems there's automatic timing on these slides, and I apologize. I'm going to have to keep going back. One of the issues is that we use our slides over, and sometimes you can't get rid of the timing. But climate change is impacting everyone. You all know this. It makes us stay inside. This leads to decreased exercise. There are cardiovascular and mental health ramifications. So I want to talk today about what we can do about it. And I'm going to use the See Clear mnemonic that we came up with with the journal. And as providers, we can use the term See Clear to help us understand how we can be partners and part of the solution in the climate crisis. Because, of course, this is the heart of what the issue is here. So who can we communicate to? We can communicate on the heat impact during patients' histories, need for preparedness, that climate change is human-caused, that greening is good for you. And medical specialties have created scripts to do this. And this is something I think physios can do too. In addition to communicating, we need to be climate leaders. And how can we be climate leaders? How can we keep up with information and know that we are really, state of the art in what we're talking about? Well, there are two journals really that I would advise people to become regular readers of, and it's easy to do this. All you have to do is sign up to get the journals via email. You'll get updates on their new articles. The first is a Journal of Climate Change and Health. And yes, I did put this in my disclosures. I am the editor-in-chief. It's an excellent journal. And we are doing right now, we have special focuses on Asia, Africa, South and Central America and small island developing states. There's a lot of info there. We do have an article in the journal. We wish we had more on nature-based therapies. Lancet Planetary Health is also a journal you can read and get information on. What other things can you do? Well, books, right? Drawdown. How to Avoid a Climate Disaster. Merchants of Doubt, Speed and Scale. These are all books I've previously read. You can get them easily on Amazon, and they are good, quick reads. The thing is, the other thing you can do is you're all members of EPTA. Well, consider joining other organizations such as SustainOurAbilities. We just started having members, and we have rehab docs, PTs, OTs, et cetera, as part of our membership. But I honestly believe that it's more important that we are part of even bigger organizations, because honestly, I am tired of speaking to very small audiences. I am now pushing to be a keynote when I give presentations, and I think we've got to start getting our message out to more people, especially with the changing political landscape in the world. We've also got to do things like this meeting, which I believe is fabulous. There is a strong impact of meetings on climate change, and we've got to think about how to make these conferences eco-friendly and inclusive. This is a paper that talks about what the carbon savings are in terms of meetings. So how can we become advocates? And one of the things I will say is just do it. And you'll see in the middle of this picture, this is me. And this is my husband, and this was an event we had at the former World Trade Center site. This is called the Oculus, and the people, this is the New York City Mayor's Office on People with Disabilities. This gentleman was the chair of the Mayor's Office on Disability at that time. He is now the chair of disability issues at the company called Walmart. And he is this woman here is actually Deanna Criswell, and she is the current chair of the EPA, not the EPA, the FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Association. This gentleman is a New York City councilor. So we've just got to do it. I've never been an advocate. I just decided in 2019 that I needed to start working solely on climate change. I used to work in disability and rehab and sexuality. And I decided climate change is more important than sex in many ways. So that's what happened. And as I've gone on my climate change journey, and I did pitch the Journal of Climate Change and Health. Somebody, oops, I got to get rid of this. That's me. I'm sorry, I've used these slides in a different presentation. All right, back. I apologize. I thought I got rid of all of those. This was when we were in New York. What I did was I started a walk, and the walk was from Canada to Key West. And I started it in 2019. And the original idea was on the way, I would get people to walk with me, and I would film people in wheelchairs and talk to them about how climate change impacted them. Sad to say, I didn't see people in wheelchairs in the US. I only ended up seeing, this is a challenge. These are going to go away. Stop, Marcalee. All right. You get the gist of those slides. I ended up walking, and I didn't see any people with disabilities on the streets. What ended up was it was super hot out. It was like 100 degrees when I was in Boston. So I ended up saying, okay, I'll divide this walk up. And I divided it up, and I walked to Washington, D.C., and I stopped in Washington, D.C. Along the way, one of the things we did was we came up with an idea for something called Day for Tomorrow. And it started out as September 22nd. That turned out to be right in the middle of what is now called Climate Week in New York. And we changed it to October 22nd, which is halfway between Earth Day. So it's 6 months before and 6 months after Earth Day. And the idea has been to have a day of community whereby we bring people together to have them learn about climate change, to talk about preparedness, to get people to know their neighbors, because knowing your neighbor is probably the most important thing to do if you've got a disaster that you're dealing with. And Day for Tomorrow has grown to being a international event as SustainOurAbilities grew to be international. We've had events in Tanzania, in Nigeria. We have groups in these countries, and they've done things like, for instance, in Nigeria, they ended up doing a tree planting. So I think that we can be advocates. It's just we've got to use our creativity and really just try, I guess is what I would say. So the last letter in CLEAR is the R, and that's for research. And the question is, what can we research? And there are, you could easily create a lifetime of work researching in the area of climate change. We need ways to decrease carbon emissions. I happen to be in Italy now, and I was lucky to see a wood-based splint. I see that as the future of rehab. We've got to think about more telemedicine, teletherapies, nature-based therapies like what you're talking about today, plant-based diets. We've got to think about things like cooling clothing. We've got to think about greening our environment in terms of mental and physical health. And then the health benefits of remote work and having employees engage in aerobic exercise instead of driving in traffic. So my journey got cut in the middle. I had a family crisis in the US. One of the big issues right now is the opiate crisis. And it hit my family when my son died of an opiate, a fentanyl overdose. And rather than changing what I did in terms of climate change and disability, I changed my name of my walk. And it changed from Canada to Key West to the Green Route, aiding healthy adaptation and mitigation. And if you guys go to this QR code, you will be able to sign a petition that I created, really advocating for green, healthy living spaces. I've got about 1,028 signatures. The real purpose of this is that people can take it to their communities and use it as a template to make change at a community level, that you can use it to advocate and to say, okay, this is what's important. We need to be having therapies outside, but we also need to have an outside that people can live in. And one of the things that SustainOurAbilities does is we do have quarterly seminars with the International Society of PRM, Physical and Rehab Medicine. And we recently had one where a woman named Adele Houghton spoke about climate change and the need for greening of living spaces. One of the things I just wanted to share is, so I started the walk again this year. Um, and I started in March in North Carolina because I had ended actually just prior to COVID in North Carolina, and COVID made me stop. So started this walk in 2019, started it again to finish it in 2024. And what did I find? Well, when I was in North Carolina, I was in a place called Lumberton. Well, I started out in Rocky Mount, walked down North Carolina, and by the time I got to the end of the state, this was where I was sleeping on my last night in North Carolina in a place called Rowlett. The only place I could find to sleep was a barn, and that was my roommate. It was kind of neat. It was different, but there was no food available. Here's a picture of Rowland. When you go around this area, I've walked over I-95 many times, walked in traffic, walked in very unsafe environments. This was next to a pig farm. These are trucks that carry pigs in them. This is some really raunchy, famous place in the United States called South of the Border. If you drive from North Carolina to South Carolina, the one thing I'll say is Rowland was one of the saddest places I've ever been. When I went to Rowland, this was like walking on 95, going towards there or off of 95. Lots of litter everywhere. Lots of cinnamon whiskey bottles, other little whiskey bottles on the road. I mean, so much garbage. Then you see this sign that says, "Don't be a litter critter." But when I had lunch in Rowland, there was one place in the town you could eat, and it was actually a convenience store. And this is kind of what they served: very healthy food. This is just, the state of this area of the US, North Carolina and South Carolina. And so what happened was when I got to South Carolina, it really triggered me a lot. It really made me very depressed. It was very challenging to be there. It was like one social determinant of health. The poverty was incredible. It was not safe. I was alone with a backpack. So I decided that it wasn't doing anybody good for me to post on social media about how awful this part of our country was every day for like 3 weeks straight. And I also couldn't carry a backpack for 50 miles with a computer in it. So I switched to doing a recumbent bike ride. I started again in Jacksonville, North Carolina, and I rode this recumbent bike all the way down to Key West. This is Sloppy Joe's Bar, which is a place where Ernest Hemingway um, used to go on a regular basis. And I do hope that I can get all these pictures. I have little videos and put together a book on the experience. But active transportation, this is the QR code for the petition. Please consider signing it. Active transportation is really, part of nature-based therapies, and there's a lot of benefits, right? Cycling, walking, or wheeling instead of driving. You've got improved cardiovascular health. It helps decrease weight, increases your strength, helps improve mood, and decreases a carbon footprint. So there are a lot of benefits about what you're talking about today. And I really think, I really, congratulate you all for the work you're doing and the great network that you've been able to put together. I think it's so important that we do continue as health professionals to see clear. And I think that now, as I said before, our work is going to be harder and more important um, because of the changing political environment in the world. I don't know how many of you follow the COP um, program, but now there's a threat by the president of Argentina that he's going to quit COP. So we've got to really realize that we've got to work hard. And that's my email if anybody wants to write. Happy to collaborate, work on research, etc. And I can answer any questions there are now. Thanks. Let me stop sharing. Or maybe you can, Philippe, you can stop me from sharing.
I'm not sure that I can. Can I? I've
Okay,
never.
I did it.
Yeah,
I'm
thank
done.
you. Perfect.
Sure.
Thank you for the lovely presentation, Marcalee. And I just learned that I've always been mispronouncing your name because I've always read it as Marcalee instead of Marcalee. But good to learn. Yeah, you're real. You're an inspiration and an example when it comes to being creative with our advocacy efforts and just generally speaking, sort of efforts of all sorts. I've just come to realize Cindy, who's sitting with us in the room here, she's actually included the C Clear framework alongside other things in the presentation she wrote in her. She wrote this in the chat here. Cindy, I wonder whether you want to just share your experience a little bit.
Okay, sure. And actually, let me see if I can just pull this up. So this is just showing a little segment from our poster. So basically, our poster was about increasing physiotherapy engagement in environmental issues. And we included implementation science frameworks, a green mission IT type of framework, community engagement. But one of the four frameworks was the C Clear. So we adapted it, and it's free access to get articles about the C Clear model in the journal that Marcalee was talking about. So we kind of, adapted in terms of the collaboration and communication, climate leadership, education, the others issues as well here. Oops, I'm sorry. And let me just make that full screen for you guys so you can maybe see it. Okay. And this really meshes with what we're doing in our Environmental Physical Therapy Catalyst group here within APTA, in terms of trying to come up with concrete examples how at individual and departmental and broader society levels, we as physios, PTs and PTAs, can be trying to address climate and health issues. So I just wanted to toss that out there. Let me stop sharing on that.
Really lovely. Thank you so much, Cindy. That was really great to see, and great that it kind of resonated.
I just
Yeah,
also
Marcalee.
wanted to thank Cindy, who I've gotten to know. She's actually writing a couple chapters in the book that we are editing, that I am editing, telerehabilitation, climate change and disability. And that will come out next year.
Really great. Lovely. Good to know that we are all collaborating in some way.
Yes,
all around the
absolutely.
world.
And at the SustainOurAbilities website, there's a lot of resources there. I know I go to Environmental Physiotherapy Association a lot for resources. If you haven't had a chance to check out SustainOurAbilities as additional sources of information, I suggest you might want to do so.
I'll put the link in the chat here.
Multiple participants in the organization from multiple countries.
Yeah. I'll put the link to SustainOurAbilities in the chat here. We can pick some of these threads up in the discussion later on. Marcalee, thanks again for the presentation. I know you won't be in the discussion, but thanks for this part. And if you can, hang out with us a little bit, that's lovely. But I know you'll have to go at some point. I'll pass on to the next speaker here and we'll stay in the US for a moment and give the word to Amy Wagenfeld. Amy, you're good to share.
Okay, great. Thank you, Philip. And oops, I have to pull my presentation back up again.
Good.
Moment. I'm very delighted to be with you all today. Let's see if this works. Oops, there we go.
Looking good. Yep.
Yes. First, I have to get it pulled up, then I can chat. I think we're all good to go. Again, Philip, thank you so much for inviting me. And I am Amy Wagenfeld, and I am an occupational therapist. I'm not sure if beyond Marcalee, who is, of course, is a physician, if there's any other non-physios in today's session, but thank you for including me. I am joining you today from Seattle, Washington, where I wear multiple hats. And I am affiliate associate professor in the Department of Landscape Architecture, which is a very, very unique role for an occupational therapist to inhabit, if you will. I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to share my skills as an occupational therapist and my lens, the lens that I provide with regard to therapeutic design with our students in the College of Built Environments. I'm also principal of a therapeutic design consulting organization called, very not creatively, Amy Wagenfeld Design. And one of the things that I'm so excited to be talking with you about this today, I'm also co-director of a new grant project called the Learning Network of the Nature and Health Alliance. But I should say that today, super briefly, but without a whole lot of detail, I really want to talk about why nature and health really needs research and practice. And I think in many ways, I'm echoing what Marcalee so eloquently shared. So first I wanted to I kind of will take us on a little bit of a journey. So in October of 2023, hard to believe it's been more than a year, I co-wrote a book called Nature-Based Allied Health Practice, and it was published by Jessica Kingsley Publishers in the UK. This book really was the culmination of my passion to really promote the value of allied health care practitioners being so well suited, so well trained, so well prepared to be providing nature-based interventions. And the whole idea of the book was to provide a research foundation for practitioners to say, yes, we can do this, and there's a good reason why we need to be in this area of practice. So this was kind of as I said, it was kind of the beginning of my well, sort of putting a lot of things on paper and saying, yeah, we need to be part of this important nature and health connection. So, oops. So because we're talking about nature and health, I thought, well, as best I can, I'm going to try to define the concepts. And I think that arguably nature is a pretty elusive concept, and it's very, very difficult to define it. So I kind of defaulted to Britannica Encyclopedia definition, not feeling like it's the greatest one, but it's something. And so it's defined as the physical world and everything that's in it that's not man-made. Okay, that seems sort of reasonable to me. Nature is, but nature is us and we are nature. And then I wanted to talk about health because there's so much interest in nature providing the foundation for nature interventions, nature connections, nature interactions, providing the basis for improved health and well-being. So I thought just a brief reminder that we all, of the definition, the World Health Organization's definition of health that I think we're all very familiar with, that health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and it's not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So a huge part of our book really focused on the holistic nature of health. And we talked about and we looked at how does nature, nature interactions, nature connections, how can it improve our mental health, how our social emotional skills, how can it improve our capacity to think, to reason, to engage in executive functioning. And of course, how can being engaged and connected with nature in a therapeutic way, how can it support how we move our bodies, how we get exercise, and how can it enhance our bodily systems? And of course, there is an increasing, ever-growing, I always feel like using the word growing is kind of funny in this context, in terms of it being a little bit of a pun. There is just an explosion of research that is evidence-based research that's really supporting nature as the one way to improve our health and well-being. And again, we as allied health practitioners, we're so well positioned to be the leaders in carrying this out. So this is kind of a little bit of a transition slide because I really want to spend most of my time talking with you about this grant project that I've recently attained. So I think that it's no secret that a lot of people who are living with health conditions, chronic health conditions and such, and other types of diseases really could benefit from better health care. Don't get me started, and certainly engaging in healthier habits, including, and I purposely italicize and underline evidence-based, nature-focused care and being outside. And I say this because I think in order for nature-based therapies to stick, if you will, to become mainstream, well-established practice, it has to be grounded in evidence. So think about, wrote this, I'm passionate about nature and health, the relationship, always have been in my work, when I was doing clinical occupational therapy practice, in my work I do now with helping to design therapeutic outdoor environments. Everything that I think about really has to come through an evidence-based lens in order for it to be, I think, more widely accepted. So writing the book was sort of my inspiration to think about how can we continue to build a bridge between nature-focused research and practice. And with full disclosure, I should say, I actually straddle the fence because I am a researcher and certainly for many years was a practitioner, and I still help to develop nature-focused therapy programs. So I, along with my co-director, a psychiatrist named Dr. Wes Tate, he and I submitted a proposal to the REI Cooperative Action Fund to develop the, we'll get to that in a moment, to develop the learning network of the Nature and Health Alliance. And I'd like to first start by talking about the Nature and Health Alliance and to hopefully get you all excited and considering joining this alliance. The Nature and Health Alliance, in its original iteration, it is also funded by the REI Cooperative Action Fund, is sort of this this gathering space for nature and health researchers, this place to come together, to share research, to be able to disseminate research that is focused on nature and health. And we thought, this is wonderful. It's an amazing resource. I highly encourage you. You can see the URL for the Nature and Health Alliance in the top corner of the slide. I highly encourage you to take a look at the website. It's wonderful because, again, it's bringing together nature and health researchers from all over the world. Now, Wes, my co-director, and I thought this is a fantastic resource, but it's mainly focused on researchers and, those coming through a more academic lens, which is fantastic. No shade on that at all. But we thought what's really could be an important addition to the Nature and Health Alliance was to develop what we called the Learning Network. And so we proposed to REI in our grant proposal, as well as directly to the folks at the Nature and Health Alliance, wouldn't it be amazing if there was also folded into the Nature and Health Alliance a place for, if you will, for practitioners? And we envision practitioners as being not only those who are in sort of the healthcare sector, those who are facilitating nature-based interventions, nature-based programs, but we also are considering practitioners, those who are in the design world, landscape architects who are at the forefront of designing and therapeutic and healing outdoor environments. And so our idea was that we would develop this network of case studies of design projects and outdoor focused nature programs. And this resource would be the kind of the go-to place for practitioners. But that's only part of it. We don't want it to be an exclusive place, but when as folded into the Nature and Health Alliance, to be this beautiful, to create a bridge between research and practice, and to be this kind of source and this site and this place for research and practice to come together. So REI was super excited about this. They thought, wow, that was the missing link of the Nature and Health Alliance. And of course, the folks at Nature and Health Alliance were very, very enthusiastic about it. We just launched about 4 or 6 weeks ago. Certainly, unbeknownst to me, I'm not a tech person. It takes a long time to develop a website. I thought you just clicked a button and it was done. My naivety about that. So anyway, one of the things that I would like those of you who are practitioners, who are engaged in nature-based programming, to consider submitting a case study. And I don't have any of the case studies kind of pulled up as part of my presentation, but if you use this QR code, it will get you to our submit a case study part of the website. And you can also kind of browse around, look at all the case studies that we have uploaded to this point. We have a backlog of about 10 more cases that will be coming up soon. And there's been a great deal of enthusiasm within the nature and health community about this resource. So I invite you to take a look at it, and more so. And I will pop this once I stop sharing my screen. I'll pop the URL for what will be the Nature and Health Alliance's first conference. And we're hosting it it will be in Houston, Texas, from April 27th to 29th. And we certainly encourage you to consider registering for the conference, submitting an abstract. But this is a conference that's intended to bring researchers and practitioners together in the spirit of supporting that incredibly important connection between nature and health. So my talk is brief. I'm going to just pop up my contact information. I invite you to get in touch with me to ask me any questions about the Learning Network of the Nature and Health Alliance or any of the work that I do. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to have gotten to share with you this morning. This is, my absolute passion in my professional life and even in my personal life. Nature, my connections with nature have at all points in my life helped me to be a better person and to deal with adversity. So let me, before I forget, I'm going to put the link to register for the conference here. And Philip, are we going to hold questions until the end, or
Yes, we are. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll do a kind of questions discussion session right at the end.
Beautiful.
yeah.
I thank you for your time, and I thank you for your interest, and I thank you all for your commitment to really understanding how nature and health is so important, and in your professional work to implement it with the clients and the patients that you work with.
Thank you, Amy. Yeah, I'm looking forward to a discussion later on. All right, I think what we'll do is we'll travel across the ocean just for a moment, across the Atlantic and to Sweden, where Lotta can tell us a little bit about actually like kind of in a case study way, I think maybe some of her experiences of working in landscape design for health. Lotta, you're on mute at the moment. But we can see you, so the camera is working.
Yeah, I'm unmuting.
There you are. Yeah, perfect. Yep.
I'm just a moment. Let's see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there it is. I just have to share the right document. Let's see, where is it?
No problem.
There. I'm gonna
Good. Yeah,
I'm
it
gonna
is.
go back here.
Sure.
Okay, so yeah, so I'm going to talk a bit about outdoor rehabilitation at the rehabilitation center where I work. We had a project in 2018 to 2019. So, but first I'm just going to tell you a little about who I am. My name is Lotta Lundmark Alfredsson. I live in Sweden, but I work both in Sweden and Norway. I live very close to the border. I'm a physiotherapist, and I have a master's degree in landscape architecture and environmental psychology from the Swedish University of Agriculture. They have a program called Outdoor Environment for Health and Wellbeing. And I have worked at this rehabilitation center for 24 years now, and I was also the project leader there for the project I'm going to talk about. And in Sweden, I have my own company where I have organizations that want to move healthcare outdoors. And I'm also one of the editors and authors of a teaching book that came out 2 years ago in Sweden called Vård, omsorg och rehabilitering utomhus, which is healthcare and rehabilitation outdoors. So, and it contains a lot of what you have talked about already. But I guess it's Swedish is hard to read for most of you. But anyway, so I work at this rehabilitation center called Unicare Backe, which is located, as I said, in Norway, but very close, as you can see on the map, to the Swedish border. So we have Sweden across the water. And it's located on the countryside very beautifully. It has about 48 inpatients. And we have healthcare professionals as doctors, nurses, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, and so on. And we have patients who have suffered from leg amputation, stroke, and traumatic brain injuries, orthopedic patients, patients with a complex disease picture, and also work-related rehabilitation. And like I said, we had this project in 2018 to 19, where the aim was to investigate the use of the outdoor environment at the rehabilitation center in order to identify and develop accessible and useful places and activities for both therapists and patients. And Unicare Backe hopes that this, in the long run, will contribute so that people who suffer from an impairment can get outdoors and thus reach the positive health outcomes that outdoor stays provide and increased quality of life. And the project contained 3 steps. The first step was a survey of the outdoor environment, and it took about a half a year. And what I did then was I did the place analysis from an environmental psychological perspective. I also surveyed the use and needs from the perspective of the therapists, and the needs and physical accessibility from the perspective of the patients. And after that, step 2 came, and that was development and implementation of an action plan. And that was two-folded. One was new routines on outdoor rehabilitation, and the other one was actions in the outdoor environment that we really needed to do to make it more accessible. And finally, we had an evaluation of the whole project. And these are just some example of tools that I used. I don't know if you know about Bengtsson. She's a researcher at the Swedish SLU, the Swedish University of Agriculture, and she has created those 4 zones that she uses when she talks about contact with nature. And the first zone is from inside a building. The next one is the transition zone. And then we have the immediate surroundings, which is usually the garden, and then the wider neighborhood. And I also used the theory of supporting environment combined with the structure of a health garden. And it's created by the professor Patrik Gran, also at SLU. And he says that people have different needs depending on their psychological how they feel, on their well-being. So if they don't feel very well, they need to be able to be maybe on their own in the outdoor environment. And the better they feel, the higher well-being they can enjoy being together with other people and activities and so. And I also looked at the accessibility in the outdoor environment. I filmed 5 different patients with different levels of function when they moved around, and I scored it in green, yellow, and red to see if, yeah, green is of course accessible, yellow is accessible for some, and red was not accessible at all. And the result, very shortly, was that I could see that the outdoors fulfill the demands for being both supportive, regardless of level of well-being. But we had huge accessibility problems. And that was due to big areas of grass, which was really hard for people in wheelchair and with other aids. We had very bad paving in some areas, difficult and unsafe entrances, lack of suitable sittings, and also poor adjustment to varied weather and time of year. And on the pictures, you see just 2 examples where here we have high trestles, so it was really hard to get in and out. And the bad paving is, you can see on the picture to the right. And the circles, there you can see all the activities that we provided outdoors, but only the ones in the green circles were accessible for the one with the lowest level of function. So we saw that, okay, we have many activities, but they are only accessible for some. So then, yes, this is also important because I did what I call walkthrough interviews with all the therapists, which meant that I walked around in the outdoors with them at the same time as I've interviewed them. And then the physical therapist that the most valued quality in the outdoors compared to indoors was the variation in ground material, to be able to train patients on grass, paved hills, uphills, downhills, even water. We have canoes, and that is something they said that's something we can never create indoors. So it's a huge asset to be able to have that outdoors. The plan we did in the outdoors was, you can see here, all this area was mostly grass, and it was really hard for people with a wheelchair, like I said, and other aids to walk there. So we created a lot of paths. We also made a patio with different kind of furniture, both sofas, hammock. We have a hammock, we have chairs with tables so people can meet with family and so on and eat something together maybe. And we made this for what you call it, boccia petanque maybe. We made it bigger because it's a popular activity, and it was also important for us to make the paths so that they go around, so you can take only a short walk if you want to, but you can also take a longer walk too. And here you have some pictures of like after pictures. Here you see the paths that were made, and it's actually been very successful. Now we have an outdoor environment that is much more used, not only when we have activities with the patients, but patients also go out on their own. And that's the goal for us. That's what we want. We want them to go out on their own so that they feel safe to do it also when they get home. We had a man who made very many furniture for us, which is perfect. He made these. Some have armchairs, some have support for the back, some don't, and they are different heights so that they are suitable for everyone. And here it's we put those on so that it wouldn't be so slippery, and we also put those handles because people had no support when walking up and down. And here you see the patio with a hammock and different kind of furniture. And we also, like I said, created new routines. We started with outdoor rehabilitation for everyone, for all patients, every Wednesday at 1 o'clock. Oh, it says 12:30 here. We've changed it to 1 o'clock, but it doesn't matter. So all patients get that on their schedule. So if they don't want to come, it's up to them, but they don't get any other kind of treatment or therapy in that time. And very many people come and join us when we're outdoors. The most common activity we have is walks, because that's what they want the most, but we also have games and plays, which is very popular, especially in the summertime. We always have coffee, and now when it's colder, we always have a fire, which also is nice. You get very nice talks when you sit around the fire. So that works very well. And now we've had it for 5 years, and yeah, it's very good. And here you see some pictures of different activities that we have outdoors. And as you see, we are outdoors all year round. We try never to cancel it, but the only time we do it is if it's very slippery, because then it gets dangerous. But even when it's raining or windy or so, we go outside, because that's also a walk in rain or a walk when it's windy can also be a fantastic experience. So yeah, and then we had this evaluation. We asked all patients for 2 years. When they left the rehabilitation center, they got this questionnaire with different questions. So we got almost 500 answers. And one question was, how important do you think it is to get outdoor rehabilitation when you are in rehabilitation? And like you see, the average score is 4.11, but almost 50% scored 5, which is the highest. And they also scored what they thought about the outdoor rehabilitation at Junikerbakke. And then the average was 4.19. So that made us feel that, okay, we're doing something right here. And when we asked them how often they think it's suitable to get this kind of outdoor rehabilitation, most people want it more than we provide. The yellow part is 1 to 2 times a week, but if you add the red and the blue together, it's more. It's daily or 3 to 4 times. So many people want more than we do today. So yes, and like I said, this book, I know it's hard for you to read, but still we were very happy to get many of the Swedish researchers to write chapters in the book, like PaRx Canada, that I guess at least some of you might know of. So yeah, we didn't have any book in this area in Sweden before, so we hope that it will help to get the whole area a bit forward. Yeah, and here are my sources, and yes, that's it. So thank you very much for letting me speak here.
Thank you, Lotta. Very much appreciated. And your book is not only relevant for Sweden, but actually for all of Scandinavia quite immediately, as we
Yes.
understand each other's languages here across these countries, right? So
yes.
Yeah, if you could just stop sharing your screen, then we
Yep.
can switch to the next speaker.
Yep.
And without further ado, and absolutely last but not least at all, we have Laura Hergott now with us from BC PaRx Foundation and the PaRx Canada project. And I think Laura is going to take us to very different types of environments in her talk.
Yeah, let me just get this guy up here.
Yeah, looking good so far.
I've lost all faces, but I assume I'm still in the meeting and presenting.
You are, yeah.
Okay,
we can see you, hear you, and we see, at the moment, we see all of your PowerPoint. So if you just click on sort of the from beginning for the slideshow,
Right.
I think it should turn bigger slightly.
Are you looking at it in the full?
No, we're seeing
Page?
no, well, at least at my end here, I'm seeing the sort of your PowerPoint window, if you will,
Oh,
with the panel up top.
So just can you click on from beginning? You've got the slideshow clicked, but click on from beginning and see if it does it more for us.
yeah. I mean, that's where I am.
Oh,
That's what my
okay.
computer
Okay.
looks like.
Yeah. Thanks.
Does
Okay,
it-
we can read it.
Yeah,
Oh, so you can't see the full screen?
not the full screen. No, we can see as I said, your PowerPoint panel.
Oh, very odd. Okay, maybe I'll just try to reshare one more time.
Sure.
Just quickly. Maybe it just didn't like it the first time. Full screen now?
No, but let's just say we can see the slides nonetheless. Yeah, this is going to work. And what you can do actually on the bar at the very bottom, if you go to read mode, that usually makes it a little bit bigger as well.
Reading view.
That's the one. This is good.
Oh,
we'll use that one.
okay.
Yeah.
And can I? Perfect. Okay. Well, I guess this is how we're going to do it today. So good morning from Vancouver, Canada. My name is Laura Hergott, and I'm excited to be here on behalf of the BC PaRx Foundation with the PaRx program. I'm the manager of the PaRx program. And in the next 10, 11 minutes or so, I'm going to give a bit of the reasoning behind why the BC PaRx Foundation chose to implement a nature prescription program, and then tell you all about PaRx, which is Canada's national nature prescription program. So I think this is kind of an interesting complement to the other presentations, one of the initiatives that we're doing up here. Let's see, next, great. So PaRx prescriptions began as a grassroots movement in the United States about 10 years ago, and since countries around the world have been implementing programs of their own. This is just a handful of the programs that have popped up. And essentially, nature prescriptions formalize that recommendation to spend time outside for health in writing. And so it gives it the same weight as a traditional prescription for medication. So traditional Indigenous ways of knowing, which include first or natural first laws, they recognize the importance of connecting to the land since time immemorial. And they recognize how humans and the ecosystem are so deeply interconnected. But now we also have a ton of the research that shows all the different health benefits of spending time in nature. It includes, improving mental health, fighting depression, and inspiring confidence, reducing the risk of heart disease and stroke, improving immune and respiratory function, sharpening the mind, increasing bone mineral density, decreasing the risk of osteoporosis, lowering the risk of asthma and allergies, and spending time in nature has even been shown to help you live longer. Now, there are a ton of research also put into how is this actually possible? What are the mechanisms behind the health benefits of nature? There are a few psychological theories. A main one that people talk about is biophilia. This is that innate connection humans have to nature because we evolved together. But there's also stress reduction theory and attention restoration theory, that nature engages this sort of soft fascination that gives our brains a break from the busy urban environments where we typically live. There's lots of lights and noise and people, and it basically keeps us in a constant state of stress, and nature gives us a break from that. Scientists have also looked into the molecular mechanisms behind the health benefits of nature. For example, plants and some trees produce these phytoncides. It's a volatile organic compound that trees produce to ward off pests and other insects. And they've been independently shown to boost human immune function as well. There's also those biophysical properties of nature, like cleaner, cooler air, softer ground, those uneven surfaces that were just mentioned, that are also healthy for us. And it's also been shown that when you spend time in nature, you're also significantly more likely to meet your physical activity guidelines, and you're going to feel more socially connected to your community. So it's really just providing health benefits in more ways than one. But a big reason about why the BC PaRx Foundation, which is a conservation organization, launched a nature prescription program is because nature prescriptions are also good for the planet. So for example, if healthcare, global healthcare was a country, it would be the 5th highest carbon emitting country in the world. And so improving people's health status in any way reduces healthcare's climate footprint. More people valuing time outside for their health also means more active green transportation, which reduces air pollution, noise pollution, and carbon emissions. It's also been shown that children who have more nature experiences are more likely to become adult environmentalists, and adults who are more connected to nature are more likely to protect it. And finally, there is a survey that showed using the health lens was one of the most effective ways to build support for planet-friendly policies, especially in those people who didn't already support them. So a lot of other environmental organizations will use the doom and gloom tactic, or will talk about animals or ecosystems that are at risk, but a lot of people don't feel personally connected to those things. And so it's not very inspiring them to take action. But when you frame nature and frame protecting nature as this is something that's important for our health, our personal health, our family's health, and you frame it as an opportunity that this is something positive you can do, people are a lot more likely to actually listen to that message and change their own behavior. So based on all of this information, this is why the BC PaRx Foundation launched a nature prescription program. And we talk about 4 main reasons about why prescribing nature is how we see a really effective way to improve people's health and improve planetary health. The first is that it's just easy and effective. The beauty of it, anyone can increase their time spent connecting to nature, no matter their physical abilities or where they live. And a 2023 study recently showed that compared to usual care, nature prescriptions had a significant improvement on blood pressure and depression. Second is that writing it down works better. So it's been shown that written advice is more readily taken than simply just saying it out loud. We hear from our patients that they'll put their nature prescription on the back of their door or on their fridge as this daily reminder to prioritize getting outside for their health. We also pursued a nature prescription program because patients trust their healthcare providers. It's been shown globally year after year, healthcare providers are ranked as the most trusted professionals. And so when they speak, patients listen. One of our patients, Jillian from Manitoba, said that getting a prescription for nature from a medical professional made me think more seriously about it, and I made a point to get outside whenever possible. And the fourth reason, as I've reviewed, is how prescribing nature is good for the earth. So this is an example of a real prescription. This is a prescription for Alicia. She is a 43-year-old woman that presented with anxiety to her pharmacist. She had trouble focusing at work during the day, especially in the afternoon. She had a hard time falling asleep at night, and over her lunch hour, she doom scrolls in the staff room. And so this is what her pharmacist wrote her. It was a nature prescription for 2 hours a week, 20 plus minutes at a time. And it told her that when she's able to spend work breaks outside, going for a short walk or sitting on a nearby park bench, to do a work call outside as appropriate, and to take a short walk in the evening before bed with her daughter. It seems really simple, these simple recommendations, but it's meant to be. We want nature prescribing, and we want it to be easy for patients to actually implement their new nature habit. And so we teach 4 main tips to our prescribers. The first is to, just like a medication, there's a specific dose. We call it the 220 rule. That's 2 hours a week, 20 plus minutes at a time, based on evidence. For example, a kid with ADHD can get the same attention boosting effects from a 20-minute walk in a park as taking Ritalin, which is a commonly prescribed stimulant medication. We also ask our prescribers to personalize these prescriptions by making it place-based and patient-motivated. It's going to be more effective. Everybody's prescription is going to look a little bit different. So you'll notice in Alicia's prescription, there was a who, a what, a when, a where, a how. It was very specific. First of all, there was that tangible, measurable goal of 2 hours a week, 20 plus minutes at a time. And it's all written down, and it's written into her schedule. We also involved her daughter. So you're more likely to do something when you're involving someone else, just like promising to meet a friend at the gym. You're more likely to actually go when you're meeting that friend. And the activities that we suggested are outdoor things that someone already likes doing, or indoor activities that we can swap for outdoor ones. We call these green tweaks. This is like meeting for a friend, like meeting a coffee date with a friend in the park instead of in the cafe, just switching an indoor activity for an outdoor one. And it's the easiest way to add more green time to your day-to-day life. We also ask our prescribers to follow it up, to ask the patient at their next appointment how it's going, what barriers they're facing, and work together to reduce them. And we also ask our prescribers to be the change themselves. Patients are more likely to actually change their behavior when they hear their prescriber or their healthcare provider is doing it too. So if they walked or biked to work in the morning, to tell their patient that they did that. We also have these 14 patient fact sheets like this one on the right, themed on different health outcomes. We hear from our prescribers that they'll print these out and just have them on a desk. They'll hand them out, they'll send the PDFs to their patients. And it just gives really nice little bite-sized pieces of information and tips for success. So since launching in 2020, we have more than 15,000 Canadian healthcare providers prescribing nature with us. This includes almost 800 Canadian physiotherapists. And because the health outcomes of spending time in nature are so widespread, any regulated health professional in Canada can register for our program. Nurses, OTs, social workers, psychologists, you name it. And you can see on this map that our prescribers stretch all across the country. We've been endorsed by more than 100 Canadian health and parks organizations. And since 2020, it's estimated that more than 1 million nature prescriptions have been written to Canadians. 1 million prescriptions. So for the widespread impact of the program, PaRx has been recognized by the World Health Organization as an effective way to build protection and restoration of nature for our health. And we also advise on 2 international projects that are focused on scaling nature prescriptions globally. Now, although Canada is known for our beautiful wild nature, there are barriers to nature access here, such as entry fees and lack of transportation. It's a big country. And so we partner with organizations to try and reduce these barriers for patients. One of our most notable partnerships is with PaRx Canada. PaRx Canada manages our national parks in Canada, and they provide free passes to our patients who cannot otherwise afford to visit their spaces. We also work with groups like conservatories, botanical gardens, conservation areas, and we also work with mobility organizations like car and bike share programs to try and help patients with that transportation barrier they might be facing. Now, I want to leave everyone with just a couple of thoughts. I want everyone on this call and watching this presentation later to make sure that you're spending 2 hours a week in nature, at least 20 minutes at a time, to get specific, to write it down. I work with PaRx people mostly day to day, and you'll be surprised, or maybe not surprised, how few of them actually spend time in nature. If you're a Canadian healthcare provider, I encourage you to register to prescribe nature with PaRx. You can do this at the QR code here, or our website will be on the next slide. This provides a lot of support for the nature health movement in Canada, as well as the global movement. If you're excited by this presentation and interested in collaborating, please connect with us. My email will also be on the next slide. And then wherever you are and whatever you're doing, make nature the 4th pillar of health in your community. So if that's at home and just implementing Saturday morning bike rides with your family, or if it's at work, implementing walking meetings outside instead of sitting in the office. At the BC Parks Foundation, we'd like to say that by enjoying our time outside now, we can protect it forever. And this is all about what nature prescriptions are about. It's enjoying that time outside for our health, but it's also building that support for nature and planetary health. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Laura. That was really lovely. Hang on, I'll just do one thing here. I'm really inspired. It's not very inspirational maybe, but I'm quite inspired to be a patient in Canada now and get those prescriptions myself. But all right, maybe another time or another way. Okay, we're transitioning into our kind of quite free-form discussion phase here, Q&A session. Speakers are equally welcome to ask questions to each other or riff off each other's thoughts in any way. For this part of the session, I want to encourage anyone who can to turn on their cameras just to enhance a sense of community. I think it's nice to see each other as much as we can in these short sessions. So if that's a possibility for you, that's greatly appreciated. For asking questions, feel free, please, to use your kind of Zoom hand signs. It usually works very well to give us an order of questions. And to give you time to kind of muster up the courage to ask a question, I'll kickstart us with a question myself. And the question is going to try and put Amy on the spot a little bit. And then Lotta can maybe follow up. You know how, so what I want to ask Amy, and then maybe Lotta, you can kind of jump in. In Laura's presentation just now, there was this how-to sheet, step 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So if you had a minute and a half and you had to give me a how-to sheet on how to design spaces for kind of balanced health and nature benefits, what would be my 1, 2, 3, 4 steps here? If I was a clinician that wanted to get engaged, wanted to do something, I have a space, what's the 1, 2, 3, 4 steps that I can do if you had to shoot from the hip now and kind of, just give me those how-tos.
Who's first, me or Lotta?
You go first, Amy.
I'm first. Okay, what I think about as an occupational therapist who's very deeply enmeshed in sensory integration theory, I would say think about all 8 sensory systems in design and thinking about how do you create a balanced environment for people who are tend to be sensory seeking and those who are sensory avoiding, and considering the spaces in between. That's my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, if you will. Other things that I think about is, sort of maybe, although sensory, our sensory systems are foundational, bigger picture, creating space, spaces that allow people to make choices, to be active, to be more passive. And I think that in the project that you've designed, Lotta, you do such a beautiful job of integrating, active engagement and opportunities for quieter reflection spaces. All yours?
Thank you. Yes,
Of course,
exactly.
but
Yeah.
sensory, that's my thing.
Yeah. Cool. Lotta,
Yeah,
your how-tos. Yeah.
I very much agree that think about all the senses, and also to really get to know, maybe they already know the target group, but also to talk to them and listen to them. I use questionnaires a lot. I think that's perfect to get to get answers to what do you feel need of, so that not only I think that, oh, we should do this and this and this. Everyone that is supposed to be the user has to be included in the process to make it a good one, I think. And also, like Amy said, this thing that the triangle I showed you, I think it's very good to think about, okay, people have different needs depending on their level of well-being. So you have to create places where they can be on their own. You talk about to see but not to be seen, but also create places when you can interact with other people on different levels there too. So, yep.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Amy, please. Sure.
Can I slide back in?
Yeah.
The theory that Lotta was talking about, places to see others but not be seen, that aligns with the prospect and refuge theory, and it's such an important concept for design, particularly if you're designing for people with mental health challenges, people with autism, and people experiencing trauma. So important to have these spaces of retreat where they can feel safe. I wanted to build on Lotta's really important takeaway about including the user group in design. That is so paramount. Often, in my experience teaching in occupational therapy programs in the past, and then certainly currently in landscape architecture, we do a lot of what we call empathy exercises in which we, sort of simulate disabilities, if you will. And that's got its benefits, because certainly it allows, particularly design students who have no grounding, particularly in, human physiology, disease conditions and such. I think it's important, but the more and more research is showing that even provided with sort of quote unquote, a lens of empathy, that's not the same as the actual user group's experience. And that's why it is so absolutely critical that their voices be actively heard and listened to in the design process. I really thank you for saying that, Lotta. It reminds me how critically important. It's not a substitute to say, well, I put my students through, go wheel around our building in a wheelchair. Well, that's well and fine, but
yes, that's good too, but you mustn't forget, but I usually say that with my patients, that no matter how many years I've worked with this, I have never had stroke, or I'm not leg amputated.
Right.
I can never say that I totally understand how it is, because I don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. Yeah, really good thoughts there. Astrid, you had your hand up for a moment. Is that still
It kind of got answered a little bit, but I maybe it formed another one. So thank you all for this very, very interesting and inspirational talks. My question would kind of lead to Laura, to you, with the same ideas that you gave now. Like, do you have recommendations considering the environment for certain patients that or guidelines? You said this 2 times 20 minutes, 2 hours. And how does the environment have to be, or which recommendations, how do you apply that, what has been said now, to that concept.
Okay, thanks. I think if I understand the question, essentially, are there essential elements of the environment in order to get those health benefits, or that might be included in the prescription? So what we say at PaRx and what the research shows is that there are no real hard lines about what counts as nature time. It's not, being around a specific type of tree or number of trees or a certain distance from the road, that it's really any connection to nature. And this is the great thing because, for example, a lot of our prescribers work with inpatients who can't leave the health center, can't leave the hospital. They can still get those health benefits of nature by adding indoor plants to their space, by spending time near a window that looks out onto nature, or listening to bird sounds, recordings of bird sounds. Those have all also been shown to have health benefits. Certainly, the more immersed you are, the better. You won't get any of those health benefits from fighting sides if you're inside listening to bird sounds. But that's what we really emphasize in the program, is that it's any connection to nature. A lot of the folks that are being recommended to spend time outside don't do it already. They don't, and it's this very foreign, can be kind of an intimidating concept. And so we try and make it, kind of as approachable and as accessible as possible for anyone. Hope that answered your question.
Lovely. Thank you, Laura. Richard.
Really enjoyed all of those presentations. And this question is quite general. I'm really interested in how any of you might respond to this. When we're talking about nature therapies or nature-based interventions, or especially ones where you're designing the physical environment, the restorative, the peaceful aspects of it seem to be paramount in terms of creating a space where people can feel safe. And I'm wondering, is there also a corollary of that, especially for people who are maybe physically mobile, but are dealing with mental distress? Is there a way to design exposure to safe threat?
I don't know is my answer.
I think, Richard, that's a really good question. I think that within design, there's an increased interest in trauma responsive design that, would, be specifically considered, when dealing with people who aren't, addressing physical mobility issues, but, mental health challenges. I think it's a very interesting area of practice, but I think it really has to be approached in a collaborative, interprofessional way. I don't think that, and this is absolutely no shade on designers, but, their training doesn't, delve into mental health. And so, collaborating with mental health practitioners is critically important. And I think, in a world where we're experiencing increased anxiety and trauma, it's just so important to develop some really evidence-based strategies to create outdoor environments that will, help to address people's, very significant mental health challenges. I think it's a beautiful question. And I think it's a real area of practice, that we as practitioners are well suited to work with researchers on developing this.
Laura, I'm not sure if you wanted to share some thoughts on this question as well, but if not, I can transition to my question.
You can ask another one.
Sure. Okay, so I have a question that I think we kind of touched on in different ways also in the two previous sessions, and I think it's an important question that needs to be raised in any discussion of all of this, but in our session here, it's finding kind of new expression again. And so specifically, I want to say, so, especially Amy and Lotta, you have experience and have worked in this kind of sense of design for health, landscape design for health and nature-based health and so forth. I'm curious about the benefits of those kinds of approaches, but where are the limits and what are kind of the caveats, right? Or especially maybe the limits actually of design, right? Because if we now design all sorts of places in all sorts of ways, we've just designed everything away, you know. I mean, there's a threat of us just designing everything away. Lotta, you know, I totally see the benefit for the particular of that design for that particular context, but I don't see that, for example, that's something that we can just blanket apply everywhere, because also you've cemented pathways, right? And you've created this thing, and there is still kind of, you know, these monoculture grass lawns, and all of those things, and you know, so my question is, it's very broad to, you know, like what are the limits of design, and where do we have to start thinking about, you know, like those limits, and how do we do that as we try to maybe enhance health and nature conducive design. And then I suppose, I mean, I will say that in our previous discussions, this was maybe more about a conversation around the limits of nature-based health and therapies in the sense of outdoor exercise and so forth, because, you know, I mean, frankly, if 1 million of people in Canada go outdoors and do really positive stuff outdoors, we won't maybe see it so much because Canada is huge, and 1 million people on that amount of land is, you know, not visible. But at some point, you know, we trample, we create pathways, we do stuff to nature also, right?
Yes.
And again, you know, the limits to nature-based health and therapy, the limits to nature-based design. Do you have any thoughts on that? It's an open question to all the presenters, so feel free to also give each other space to share thoughts on it.
One limit, as I see it, is of course the place you have to work with. You just, and I also want to say what you said, that you can't have a formula and use it on because every place is different. But you sure have limits on each place, both in size and in yeah, what's in there. And so sometimes you definitely cannot create and include maybe all those elements that you want, because it's not possible in that area. So that's a limit, I think. But it's also interesting what you say about that. We have to understand that when we use nature, we also leave things, well, we shouldn't leave things in the nature, but the possibility that we do. In Norway, they have this, I'm sure you know it, Philip, sporlös färdsel, which is a good list of things to think about when you're in nature, so that you don't leave it worse than when you came. So, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. I see we have 2 questions. I want to really give space to those. Or did any of the other speakers want to respond in some way to my question? Laura, yeah.
Yeah, I think just really simply the phrase, you know, you protect what you love. So the more that you kind of fall in love with these spaces, you'll learn to recreate responsibly and protect it yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think
Cindy, yeah, sorry, Amy. Yeah, go ahead.
Power of place attachment is profound.
Yes.
Thank you. Cindy.
Yes, so at least in some areas, physios are now having to, when they're instructing patients in outdoor activities of any sort, some patients are needing instruction in terms of, okay, needing to maybe check the air quality index or the heat index. So making sure that their outdoor activities are safe in nature for their particular health conditions, for the particular weather conditions. So I'm just curious if any of that is being incorporated in any of your programs, and how to do it without, we don't want to make our patients afraid to be outside, but for some patients, there are safety precautions they need to observe.
We have created shade areas that we didn't have before. That's something that was part of the project we had, because we saw that we don't have anywhere to put the patients when it's really hot or warm. So that's something we have done, which is really good to have. Yeah, that we have used a lot. Yes.
Yeah, and the other end of the extreme here in the Pacific Northwest, certainly for the therapeutic projects that we're working on here, is providing shelter from rain. so that, you know, and proximal to the building, shelter from rain, so that you can still maybe not have to venture out completely into an outdoor space, but, you know, right near the door, you can still be outside and protected from the elements.
Yeah.
But increasingly, sun's becoming an issue here. But, yeah.
All right, Adjoa, you have a question.
Yes, I actually have three.
Sure.
The first one is I'd just like to know physios who have, you've gone into a different area, I think, landscape architecture, and maybe I'd just like to know how easy is that, you know, is it like a completely different thing? The whole experience, if you could just share that. And my second question, I saw that Laura even wrote something similar. To what extent is a person's appreciation of nature, how much does that translate into these benefits? Because I've seen most of these benefits, you know, depression and all that, you know, hormonal stuff. Maybe the physical one, even if they don't appreciate nature, they can still get their exercise in. But, you know, what if the attitude of it matters? What is all this green stuff versus I'm really happy to be here? Now, how much that translates into the actual benefits. And using myself as an example, between my sister and I, she, you know, got fascinated by leaves on the ground and all that. I could think nothing of those until just a few years ago. So I saw that I changed, like I got to learn to appreciate nature later. So for a patient, maybe do we just say that, oh, this person doesn't like nature, so let's just not introduce them, or try to, as part of the therapy, like teach them in little bits, maybe give it to them as assignments, you know, get a potted plant, blah, blah, blah. There's a target there. And then who knows, maybe they will appreciate it eventually. I don't know what you think about that. And the last thing is, all this got me thinking, in correctional facilities like prisons, do they have any kind of nature-based thing going on there? So those are my three.
No less. Who wants to start with either 1, 2, and 3?
If I understood right, the first question was maybe to me, talking about the combination of physiotherapy and yeah, and actually what I tried to do, I'm really glad that I had the bachelor in physiotherapy and then took this master in landscape architecture and environmental psychology, because I think that combination is really, and that's what I try to, when I work with places, I really try to show the importance of those together. I often get the feeling that maybe since I've worked with patients for such a long time, it's easier for me to understand the needs of the target groups, for the users, than maybe for a landscape architecture or architect. So I really enjoy having that combined knowledge. I think that's, yeah. So I don't work only with one thing. I combine them. Yes.
Laura, do you want to jump in, and then I'll jump in? I can take number 1 somewhat, and number 3 for sure.
Perfect, because I was going to talk about number 2. So I think the important thing about getting someone to, encouraging them to go to nature, who they might not already think of themselves as a nature lover or identify as that, is to ask them, when do you go outside and what do you enjoy doing outside? And starting there, because it might be something that they hadn't really thought about before, as this is a way for them to connect to nature. Gardening, for example, might not typically be seen as nature therapy, but it is connecting with nature in a meaningful way. And I think there's also a ton of great tools at our dispense these days for connecting with nature in new ways. So there's, things like making nature art. I'll give a little shout out to iNaturalist. It's an app you have on your phone, and it identifies plants and trees and animals, and it's really fun. And like, we have a little staff competition going, and amongst my friends, it's almost a social network type of app for us at this point, but it helps us connect to nature in that new and interesting way. And one thing we do at PaRx is also providing those kind of special experiences. So when a patient receives a PaRx Canada Discovery Pass to go visit some of our national parks, we don't expect that that's how they're going to connect to nature every day. That's just not realistic for most folks. But it might give that really special experience, and maybe they do some interpretive programming that encourages them to find more nature in their neighborhood, at home, in their day-to-day lives. So also providing that kind of special thing to get that interest going. Okay, I know we have one more, so go ahead, Amy, with number 1 and 3.
Yes, last words, Amy, in our last minute.
Okay, then let me skip number 1 and instead go right to number 3 about greening prison campuses. Absolutely, there's a tremendous interest in doing so. There is a lot of research that's being published on the impact of, considering nature on prison campuses, as well as therapeutic nature-based interventions, as being very, very beneficial to not only incarcerated individuals, but the staff who work there. And if you shoot me an email, that's not a right word. Okay, if you send me, and that was really bad, my apologies. If you send me an email, I'll stick my email in the chat again. I can send you a reference list. I'm sorry about that. Last word, crazy, huh? Not such a good one.
Yes, lovely.
Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you all for sharing. Thank you for the lively discussion. I'm just gonna also share my screen. I need 1 minute to kind of close us. So this was session 3 of our symposium today. We have another session at what will be 10:30 Central European time, and something else in your respective time zones. We have this spread of sessions because we wanted to make people in all time zones, have a chance to join at least one session. So 10:30 will be our last one. The recordings of all the sessions will go on our YouTube channel and then on our website, and there'll be ways to share it. The website is environmentalphysio.com. This is where we have loads and loads of resources. And you can also, of course, join if you're not already a member. And then we also have a survey open currently. It's for members and interested non-members. We'd love to get a little bit of feedback on the stuff that we're doing already with the Environmental Physio Association and what people might want to see sort of going forward, not just on nature-based health and therapy, but like on this bigger, planetary health, sustainable healthcare, however you define that huge field. For that last session that we have coming up, there will be speakers from as far as wide as Southeast Asia, Denmark, Trinidad and Tobago, and Australia. So whether it's late in the night for you or early in the morning or in the middle of the day, we'd love to see you there as well. Again, thank you for joining this session, and I'm looking forward to connecting with all of you again also after our symposium. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.